in terms of what's new recently, the 5150, I'm excited by it. The 5150, I feel, is going to change how people shoot. Really kind of like a centerpiece, like a showcase lens.
This is the challenge we have now with our lenses. Is like,
It's what do you put in your bag?
yes, exactly.
I had the chance to use the FX2 for a week. When you first pick it up, you're like, I get it now. What's your favorite new feature in the FX2?
I think.
Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Full Frame podcast presented by Sony. I'm here with Senior Product Specialist Sean Ellwood.
Hello. Good
How
to
are
be
you?
here.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm great. It's a bit kind of cold and wet and horrible today, but we're here. It's warm.
We're here. This studio is nice and cozy, so that's good. Yeah, so we're here to really dig into a lot of the tech stuff, maybe some releases, talk about product, and kind of answer some technical questions as they come up. Hopefully answer some polls in the future as well.
Yeah, that's right. I'm kind of the one of our professional nerds at Sony. So talking tech's my bread and butter.
AKA the coolest job.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Definitely has its pros. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Just kind of digging into the meat of
The nitty
all the
gritty
new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. So in terms of what's new kind of recently, we're probably going to talk about the FX2 and the 5150.
Yeah.
Kind of as, two most recent releases, but also two releases that probably deserve a bit of a digging, like to really dig into them.
Very talkable.
Yeah, very talkable. Just because there's a lot of new updates that are not necessarily like big headline features, stuff that's kind of buried in the menus, but is really important stuff to chat about.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. So we'll probably kick it off with the FX2 then.
FX2.
I had the chance to use the FX2 for about a week. And at first, it's one of those things where like every product has its own unique kind of aura. And as soon as you pick it up, you really realize what it is.
Yeah.
And I think at first glance, maybe on a spec sheet, when you're reading, it's got a 33 megapixel sensor, it's doing 6K downsampling, all the good stuff, all I 422 10-bit, all of that good stuff. When you first pick it up, you're like, I get it now.
Yeah.
So after using it for about a week, I really enjoyed the experience. The addition of the EVF, and it's not like a small one, like say like the Alpha 7C series. It's a really bright, clean and sharp EVF. And I loved it. It was a fantastic camera, and bringing across some of those features, say from the, what we call the Cine Alta line, like the Big Six and stuff like that. For those of you who don't know the Big Six, Sean will fill you in.
Yeah, so Big Six is the display. So on on your typical cameras that most people are going to be used to, you have your information display. You've either got like a little kind of tile display that's quite busy. It'll have like a lot of different things on it, and that's you can't see a picture, you can just see settings. That's the kind of the info display on A7 series and all that sort of stuff, A9 series, A1. And then on the more cine focused cameras, so your FXs, and also, this actually has history that goes way, 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 way back. But the Big Six display gives you sort of 6 big tiles, which have key functions, and it's kind of intended as a at a glance thing. Yeah. So you can see your exposure, you can see, often stuff around codec or frame rate. It's all customizable, but it is, supposed to be there as a way to really quickly see your settings. And then the expectation is you're probably going to be monitoring the actual picture through a viewfinder elsewhere or something like that. So
like an external monitor, or a director's monitor or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Big Six kind of comes from that film world where often you want to turn this display into a pure information display. I'm not going to use it to look at the picture. Yeah,
okay. And that's something more similar to what you'd see on like a Burano or a Venice 2.
Yeah. And also, it's also existed in like electronic news gathering cameras, the stuff that you'd see news crews using, all that sort of stuff. It's kind of been through all the Sony, pro filmmaking, pro video. I guess for anyone like who's not familiar with the FX2 at all, it is sort of intended as a step into cinematography. So, the kind of lead line is your gateway to cinematography. And so, it is this kind of model that straddles, between like an FX30 and like an A7 Mark IV or maybe an A7C Mark II. It's in that kind of gray area. And, this is kind of something we've been doing for years, right? Yeah. Like this continuous democratization of cinema, right? Like getting it more and more accessible for
Well, that's just a response to demand as well, where
100%.
there's an increasing demand for hybrid shooting, but then also the market is trending towards video. And I obviously when this product launched, there was maybe like a little bit of confusion as to who it's potentially for, but after using it, it's very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear who it's for. And I'm really excited by it personally, just because there's like a little hardware tweaks and things like that that really make the operability and the usability of the camera so much better. So it's nice to see some of that stuff kind of trickle down.
Yep.
And when people were asking me, like, who's this camera for? Or like, it's sitting in that halfway point between a 30 and an FX3. But I remember there were similar conversations when the FX3 launched after the Alpha 7S Mark III, where people were saying, well, why would I get an FX3 when I can get the same sensor in the Alpha 7S III? Right. But on a spreadsheet or a tech breakdown, you can't really see the real world differences. Yeah. And then once you've used the camera and you're like, oh, the tally lamps, internal fan, time code, all of the stuff that make the FX series a cinema body. That stuff is just invaluable to me personally.
Yeah. I mean, and it is, as you say, like the spec sheet, I think a lot of the initial discussion was kind of spec sheet focused.
Yeah.
But like once you get it in hand, it's like, oh, right, like this thing, it's got all these little design cues that have been taken from different models that have appeared in the range. So, having the big rec button on top, I mean, I love that personally because it makes it so distinct. You always know where to go for it. I do think there's some muscle memory challenges when you're kind of coming from other models. But having like that nice easy switch between stills and video mode with the menu button in the middle of it, I think that's a cool update. And I think it makes the camera really easy to work one-handed, which can be especially for a camera that is at that more entry level. It's going to be your B cam, your C cam, potentially on a larger set. That's going to be really valuable for a lot of people as well.
Yeah. The other thing that I've always noticed, this isn't specific to the FX2, is that the alpha bodies feel amazing in the hand when the camera is up to your eye, as in all C1, C2, all of the buttons are designed to be held like this.
Yes.
Whereas the FX camera is almost designed to be used like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it might not seem like a big deal, but when you're shooting for 10 hours, 12 hours on set, or you're using it in an easy rig or on a gimbal, not having to access the back of the camera to change things, whereas everything's just on the top plate, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And ergo has always been part of, especially for cinema line. It's such an important part of the way people use cameras, and it is, it is that kind of thing that again, like it doesn't appear on a spec sheet, and it's only going to really turn up once you put the thing into practice and start putting some miles on it. I think another thing that's really interesting about the FX2 is, as it kind of hits the market and as more and more people get to use it, you do see these interesting different angles people have on it.
Yeah.
So, you see, for example, as a, it's like a scouting camera, not as something for an entry level person. Obviously, probably the mass market for this camera is going to be people who are just getting their first start. But then you get people who, they've been in the industry for a long time. And they've been looking for an option that's a great stills camera when they're scouting, for example, right? Exactly. You're off doing a location scout. I want to shoot on something that has color matching for the camera that I'm going to bring in as my A cam. I'm shooting on Burano or Venice or whatever it is. So, bringing in the FX2 means I get, really consistent color matching. I can even shoot it in log profiles if I want to shoot my JPEGs and everything. And having your profile stay consistent between your movie mode and your stills mode, that's new on the FX2, but it makes it that much easier. So that way you can come back and forth and capture your stills, capture your video, and it's all going to be consistent. It's all going to work into your same workflow when you get back.
You can also pull 4K, 8 megapixel screen grabs from the video in camera. That's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. So using that shot mark tool, you can and you can assign that actually to the shutter button. So then you can be shooting video and just kind of like as you're panning around, you just hit that shutter every time you want to capture a still, pops it out and puts it onto the SD card or F card, whatever it is. So I mean, huge.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that will inherit whatever profile you're using for the video as well.
Yeah, and the gamma as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, really, really handy, I think.
In terms of who you think this camera is really aimed at, you said obviously like entry to filmmaking as kind of like the main headline piece for this product. Where do you feel like it's going to sit? Do you think people would be potentially swapping out Alpha 7 4s if they're trying to do, say, like longer form recording, or they want, they're doing doco or narrative work where some of those cinema features become particularly relevant?
Yeah.
Is that really where you see this camera fitting? Or I see it really across a lot of genres, to be honest.
I think it will. It is a camera that it's complicated, right? I mean, like all cameras insanely complicated these days. That's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to take a long time to really seat in and find its place. But there's a few things that are kind of unique about it. I think the image it produces is really great. Like
it's a 7.2 downsampled 4K.
That's right. Yeah. So it's
gorgeous.
It's the A7 Mark IV sensor. So you're getting the incredibly detailed 4K image. And then the flip side of that is it is a slower reading sensor, right? So you're not really going to want to use it maybe for as much run and gun stuff. But if you're going to be locked off on a tripod, which lots of people. I mean, right here we're using a bunch of locked off cameras.
Yeah, we're using FX30s for this.
FX30s. Yeah. So this kind of scenario, it's going to be arguably like the best image you can get. Anywhere nearby in terms of price point. So could be very, very popular for your even just documentary stuff.
Yeah, anything without crazy fast moving subjects. But I see it being pretty useful for wedding or anyone who's shooting in natural light where relying on the rear LCD or potentially, not wanting an external monitor, having that little EVF, like adventure filmmakers, documentarians, sports.
Yeah.
Anything where you sometimes actually do need an EVF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, having that standoff on the EVF, I've heard a lot. I mean, so I'm a lefty.
Okay.
And so like I'm one of those people who my default way of using a camera is like my left eye goes to the viewfinder and then I just sort of mash my face against. Like you can probably, the people who are on audio, this is not going to come across, but I mash my face into the back of the camera.
Yeah.
And so all my cameras are filthy on the back. They just got like my face, on the back.
Okay.
But this camera is actually great for me because it has more eye relief, because that the viewfinder comes out a little bit. So
and you can buy the larger extended,
the big eye cup.
Eye cup as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's obviously, great when you got brighter light that you're dealing with. But yeah, for me, that's a nice way to use it.
I actually like the rangefinder design across the FX2, but also like the Alpha 7C series as well. Just because it means that your nose doesn't touch the rear screen.
Yeah.
My rear screen's always filthy, but I do like the rangefinder design on the FX2. It means that, especially what I mentioned earlier about people that are maybe shooting sports with it, it means you can still be using the EVF and still kind of aware of your surroundings because you can have your other eye open.
Yes.
Yeah. That's particularly helpful.
Yes. 100%.
So you don't get hit by something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to sideline into like the whole both eyes open shooting style because I think it's super interesting, but it's probably not really relevant for what we're talking about today.
Well, for the FX2, it's
cool.
It is cool.
Have you done that thing with like a 50 where you do like the floating rectangle thing?
No.
Yeah. So like it's this way of shooting. I think it comes from rangefinders, but like you... if you're on a 50 or something close to normal, right? So like anywhere from like 35 to like a bit past 50, you can get like your rangefinder, your viewfinder image, zoom it so that it's matching what you see through your eye, right? Because that's 50 mil-ish, 45 mil is where your eye naturally is, the part of it that's sharp. So you match the size of the two images to be the same. And then you can kind of shoot in this way where like, because your eyes are just going to integrate the picture and you'll have, it just looks like one picture. You then
so it's your eyes almost doing phase detect.
Kinda. And so you've got this floating rectangle but in your vision. So you can sort of see all your periphery. You can see like what's coming into frame, what's maybe leaving frame. But at the same time, you can also see like, here's the edges of my frame.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, a lot of like street shooters talk about shooting that way because it's, in street, it's all about like the action and what's coming in and out and sort of that like little moment and trying to anticipate what's about to happen. And so being able to see the periphery and what's coming in and what's leaving
Well,
really
I
handy.
definitely do that with bird photography.
Yeah.
Where even on a 200 to 600, I'm
Mhm.
shooting with both eyes open
Yeah.
because tracking something at 600 is
Mhm.
not impossible, but it's more difficult than if
It is hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
So I'm always shooting with two eyes open for
Yeah,
that, just
yeah.
so I can, even if you get 5 degrees closer to your subject just by using the eye that's not to the EVF.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Well,
definitely helps.
you've got on a 600 mil, you've got, I don't, I'm going to show my lack of knowledge here, but it's a few degrees. It's like 5 to 6 degrees, something in that range.
Yeah, your field of view is tiny.
It's super tiny. Yeah. And that's the thing that always throws people when they go to super telephoto shooting is suddenly they're so close in that like you put your camera up to your eye and where, I don't know where the subject is.
Yeah. And a degree of difference in your hand is multiplied by 6 or
That's
whatever it is. If it's 1 degree of movement in your hand
Yeah.
at the telly end
Yeah.
at 600, that's now 30 degrees of movement.
That's right. So good luck.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with maybe the FX2 or the FX line at all, we might just do a quick spec breakdown.
Sure. Yeah. So 33 megapixel sensor. It's got most of the video recording modes you'd expect from the FX series. So the only areas where you sort of give something up is in those like really high frame rate things. You don't have 4K 120, that sort of stuff. But you do get 4K 60 at a bit of a crop. You get 4K 30 with that really nice oversampling. You don't get 8K. But you do get 10-bit and you get your really nice chroma pull downs as well with your 422 and your 420 options. You get your XABCS codec, of course, and all that. So yeah, I mean, I think like that is a pretty comprehensive offering there. You've got SD and CF card
Compatibility,
storage options. What else is kind of key on this one? I mean, yeah, you do get the option of the top handle as well. So just like all the other FX series, you can get the XLR inputs, which is critical if you're going to be doing sort of solo shooting stuff and you want to get high quality audio. Yeah, the viewfinder, as you say, nice high quality viewfinder. It's got a bit of extra standoff. Screen and viewfinder are sort of similar spec to the A7C range.
Yeah.
So because the viewfinder is tiltable, it's not the really giant OLED panel that we have in like the Alpha 1, A7R, that sort of stuff. It's still that little slightly smaller, but you do, because the optics are kind of quite good, it still, I think, comes across as a really nice viewfinder. Yeah.
I got the impression from using it that it didn't feel like a lower resolution or anything.
Yeah, that's right. I think the hardware sort of supports, like the optical hardware is supporting the screen a little bit more there. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's the key spec. In terms of like your stills performance, it's 10 frames per second. It does have the AI chip, which is really, really great.
Yeah.
And that's going to support you on both stills and video sides. So, that's something that actually it kind of gets over some of the early FX stuff. So,
yeah. The other thing that I probably want to touch on is maybe the crop in 4K 60. I think a lot of people might read it on a spec sheet and kind of, this is something that I bring up in all my workshops as well. It's like, well, what is the purpose of slow motion?
Right.
And most people would answer, to show something in more detail. I'm like, cool. Well, you're probably going to be shooting on a tighter lens anyway. So
yeah.
It's a win-win.
100% it can be. Yeah. Yeah. I think, most people who have used the camera find, like that image is still great. It's not like,
and that's to maintain full pixel readout.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's one for one.
Personally, I would rather have a crop and be delivered a better image than to say commit to the full frame readout,
right?
But have to do pixel binning or line skipping to get down to get us to the 4K 60.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know anyone who's done line skipping in years now. Obviously it's kind of the boogeyman of downscaled video. But it looks so bad, I think there's been enough side-by-sides where you just look at the line skip footage and go like, ugh, like yuck, big yuck.
Yeah, so the crop in 4K 60 or 4K 50 in my case, but not really bothered by it.
No. And it's still, still full pixel readouts, so you still got full 4K detail. It doesn't have as much of the downscaling in there, so you don't not quite as crispy as your original image, but hey.
Yeah.
For a slow-mo image, it's going to intercut beautifully. The color matching's still great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very well behaved.
Sean, what's your favorite new feature in the FX2?
Okay, I'm going to adjust the question slightly because there's something I want to talk about. I think so I guess like the viewfinder design probably is like the coolest, most, on its standalone, like it's probably my favorite. But my favorite that's like maybe not as talked about as other features is the update to the cooling design. So actually on the FX2, if you look at the back of it, it's got like this cutout. So where the screen rests against the camera on that surface, there's actually a cutout which gives it even more direct flow. And so I think potentially that's something that we're going to see elsewhere as well, but it means that the cooling on the FX2 is really robust. And so, that's something that hasn't like really been talked about that much. And I think it's nice. Like it's nice to have a camera where you can just run it at any setting and basically not worry about cooling ever.
Yeah, because there's a lot of products on the market that are kind of designed to retrofit an Alpha 7 IV to get it as close to a production camera as you can. But it's, you're buying another $1,000, $1,500 worth of accessories.
Yeah, and strapping a Peltier to the back of your monitor.
You're doing everything you can to just dissipate heat, but also, rig it out to give it the features that the FX2 just comes with out of the box.
100%. Yeah. And when it's built into the design, it's just, it's going to be that much more robust. So.
And I did get that impression of the FX2. It felt like a workhorse. It didn't feel like a slight step up from an FX30. It just felt like an absolute tank. Like it felt like a weapon.
Yeah, very integrated. Yeah, that's right. You can do some damage with that thing.
So 5150, really kind of like a centerpiece, like a showcase lens.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it's so exciting?
I mean, look, unique spec, right? We always love to see that, and I think lenses have been pretty set for a long time in terms of spec as well.
There's a very like common and unanimous kind of decision to accept certain focal lengths.
Yeah,
but that's also a stylistic thing. Like we're accustomed to certain focal lengths. But this lens is really exciting.
Oh yeah, it's something else. Yeah, but I mean, you look back and you go like, there's probably been 2 decades of 24-70 f2.8 and 70-200 f2.8 have just been...
They're staples.
They're staples. Like if you got it, you got it. And then like there's not a better zoom. That's just what there is. And so the move to having now these f2s that sit kind of at the tippy top.
Like the 28-70 f2 GM as well.
That's right. Yeah. It's a shake-up. It is a real shake-up. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to it. I don't know that every pro is necessarily going to want or need to move to F2 as their standard kit.
Yeah.
100%. There are going to be plenty of pros who do. I've seen it already.
Yeah.
And I think for the people who want and need that, they'll love it. But it is kind of moving into this area where for a long time, chasing aperture was not just about getting the look. It was also about necessity, because we had, we were back in the film days and we needed more light, and low light photography was hard and you needed more light into the camera. These days, honestly, like probably a lot of us could get away with F4 in terms of light gathering. You can get enough light onto the sensor to get a good picture. That's not your problem. It's now these days, it's really more about like, I want to get that look.
It's a stylistic choice.
Exactly. And I think that's what the 50-150 kind of promises, is you're going to get the prime look, not kind of so much of a zoom look.
Yeah, it's a bag full of primes in one lens.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, yeah. And so, especially at the longer end, you look at this next to like our 135 f1.8, and it's like, well, I mean, spec-wise, like aperture-wise, the amount of background blur you're getting is, I mean, it's the same.
It's comparable.
It's very comparable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is offering something really unique. I think it's going to be huge for, like, obviously, court sports photogrophers.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this previously.
Yeah, when we chatted.
That 50-150 range is kind of perfect for those small court sports.
Yeah.
Where you need a lot of light, because you're trying to freeze motion.
It's indoors. Often.
And it's indoors.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like tennis is obviously, you got more light because it's outdoors usually, but things like, indoor soccer,
volleyball,
100% volleyball, even smaller things like table tennis, that sort of thing, they're all going to really benefit from this. And, we've already seen the 135mm f1.8 get really popular with those sports because it's got the, dual XD linear motors, and so it focuses fast, but then it's also got, stacks of light gathering capability, enough reach. Where it has previously kind of had a weakness, though, is
sometimes
somebody comes closer, you've got the 135 on, and now like you're just going to get like their armpit or something.
The 135 is a two body solution.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas with the 150 to 150, suddenly you can realistically have every focal length you need in one lens, and that'll open up a lot of shots that people would have missed otherwise, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the other real key talking point is the weight.
Yeah.
Just that it doesn't actually weigh as much as a bag full of primes.
I mean, to be clear, still a heavy lens.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 100%. It's
like if you were putting a 50, even a 51.4, an 85 1.4, 135, and maybe or swapping out the 135, maybe you have a 70 to 200 and two primes. It's still lighter than any feasible combination
any
of those
lenses. I think you'd be heavier at that point. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, especially once you include a telephoto like a 135. So yeah, I mean it is a lot lighter than carrying around a bag of primes. It's and even at like 1.2, I think roughly 1.2, 1.23.
I can't remember.
No,
me neither. It's around there somewhere.
Isn't that ballpark? It's a kilo and a bit. It's still very carryable, I think, for a full day. Especially if you're able to go from two bodies down to one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it's offering capability that you just don't get with anything else. And that ability to just quickly switch, right? Go from 150, crash it back to 50, get your wide, and then be back in a moment later.
And it's got quad XT linear motors.
Yeah, that's right. And that's another thing that's really cool on this lens is it does have really good close focus. Nowhere near macro, but often with these versatile lenses, you give up something in that close focus. And on this one, you can still focus really close into the lens.
And I'm guessing also with those 4 XT linear motors, it means that you can do crash zooms or quick zoom outs while still focusing quite accurately.
100%.
Which would be great for those sports shooters.
Yeah, that's not exclusively a hardware thing. That's also a kind of a software thing. It's kind of been a two-part thing that's had to come together. But yeah, that's right. It does focus a lot more gracefully while you're kind of actively zooming. I should just spell out the reason why those 4 motors make a difference to close focus is not because of the motors as such. It's a floating focus system. So what we almost always do in our lenses is have 1 or 2 focus motors per group. And in the 50 to 150, we've got 2 groups so there's 2 sort of elements in the lens that are moving to achieve focus.
In tandem.
In tandem, exactly right. And so each of those groups has 2 motors driving it, where you get your 4. So it's not like there's 4 on a single element. I don't believe we've ever done that. It's almost always 2. But yeah, very powerful, very quick. It feels snappy like the Super Tellies. So yeah, it kind of fills that sports role if that's what you need.
Yeah.
I've had some really good feedback from people shooting wedding with it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, who else is interested in this lens from your feedback of, talking to pros?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think wedding photographers are another group who, they're less about the light gathering, but they're very much about the look. And so it is a lens that can deliver you that prime look. And, you see a lot of wedding photographers who are getting around with multiple primes, but then they're giving up the flex.
That's me.
Zoom.
That's me.
Yeah. You're multiple prime guy. And obviously that means you can deliver a certain look for your clients.
Yeah. But it'll usually be like a 35-85, but then sometimes the ceremony 85's not tight enough.
Yes.
So like
maybe you're switching at 35 towards 72 or something like that.
Yeah. Whereas I can see, 5150 is just the solo lens you use for a ceremony.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And obviously you get your group shots elsewhere. You're gonna have time for that, but yeah, for running around and trying to get everything at a wedding, 50 to 150 does a lot in a small package.
Yeah. What about for video?
Yeah, look, I think it's got a lot of legs for video. Obviously, as a autofocus lens, that's not something that kind of gets featured in every area, but as something for news gathering or for people who are doing, corporates, event work, all that sort of stuff, I think it, again, has a lot of flexibility. Probably not a lot of people using the very long end of a 70 to 200 for video work that often, unless they're locked off on a tripod. So yeah, I think as a run and gun lens, it's got some chops. It is something where you're going to be leaning on your stabilization in camera more. So that's something to think about. But definitely it's going to give a unique look. The focus is going to keep up for everything. So then it's just about what you want to kind of get out of it.
5150 OSS.
It doesn't have it.
No.
So, I mean, it is kind of in that gray area where you kind of don't really need it for most of the focal length range. So, you look at it next to a, like for example, like our 24-70 is not stabilized, not optically stabilized, and you'd never miss it because the body's stabilized enough, and it's not an issue.
And most of the alpha bodies released after probably 2020, late 2023, they're all 8 stops of IBIS in camera now.
That's right. Yes, yeah. So, you get stack stabilization from the body. When you move into like super telephoto, that is where optical stabilization becomes really important, and you see it on all the like top end super telephoto lenses. And our 7200s typically have featured it. So, I think the 50-150, we don't really have anything to strictly compare it to say like this should or shouldn't have it. I think in the end, the engineers have gone, well, we can make it this size and this weight and not have optical stabilization. And I think for most people, it's not going to be an issue. We see people use for a lot of that sort of stuff. I've never heard complaints about stabilization on the 135. So adding an extra 15 mil is probably not going to break it.
And also the fact that it's f2, you're already got a little bit more light gathering, a lot more than say like an f4 or something. Yeah. You've already got more light to deal with, so you can use a faster shutter speed anyway. Yeah,
that's right. I guess, maybe you might care about it more if it was for video, but I do think, again, trying to shoot smooth video at that long end, I mean, you probably just want to be on a tripod. Trying to shoot long end video handheld is, it's a struggle.
Yeah, teaching photography on the ship, we would always explain it as, well, if your subject's moving and you're not, you find a shutter speed that, you're comfortable with, or, double the focal length. And then, you're moving and your subject's moving, then double it again.
Yeah.
Just to be safe. And in most circumstances, if you're dealing with f2 or f1.8, you've got so much light to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, anything daylight, you've got no issues.
Yeah. I remember I shot a couple of games of MBL with Sony, actually. This is way back, like 2019 days.
Yes.
And we were shooting on 100, 400s sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Or mainly 70-200. But even 2.8, I was shooting the whole thing at ISO 8000. Right. And it looks clean as. And it's not something that I ever really worried about.
I don't think it's going to be a major issue. And I mean, we haven't, in the end, I think most people are well across the stabilization issue, and no one seems to be too concerned. So. Yeah. What is a person who the 50-150 is best suited to?
I think I've recently invested in a very big set of primes. So, and I'm loving the 85 GM2. Would I see myself using a 50-150? Potentially, honestly. I used it once for Vienna. Shout out to Vienna, one of the other advocates. I went to one of her workshops. And I was lucky enough to have 2 50-150s spare with me that day.
Boy.
So I used one of them, loaned the other one out so people could have some hands on. I loved it. It definitely kind of took away a lot of the restrictions of shooting. We're on a beach shoot, so I don't really want to be changing lenses too much anyway. Would I sell my primes? I'm not sure, just because the primes I do have are so beautiful in their own right. So it makes it very hard for me to be like, I could get rid of it and swap out.
I think that's a really good point. Is people do develop like a real relationship with their specific lenses, and the 50-150 is kind of offering a different way of working, right? It's less about, I know this particular lens has a specific way of rendering or what have you.
Yeah.
Although, of course, 50-150 is going to have its own qualities like that.
And I do really like those qualities itself. I think for me, it would be one of those case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
If I had the opportunity to use a 50-150 or a bag full of primes, I would be happy with either.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the 50-150, wedding, sport, maybe some editorial, maybe even studio. I know you'd be shooting at deeper apertures anyway, but just for the versatility of those longer lengths all in one kit, it's pretty appealing.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably one for people who have the need to work across a lot of different situations in very short periods of time. That's really where a versatile zoom like that comes into its own.
I think also paired with other lenses in the kit. Like if you were if you were tossing up between a bag full of primes and a 5150, you might want something wider so that the bag full of primes might tickle your fancy. But if you're a 28 to 70 f2 user, you're going, well, maybe just the whole kit, two lenses. Let's do it.
We're done. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I think probably not a beginner's lens.
No.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously it's great. It covers a lot of bases, but I think you'd want to have your practice down, know the way you like to shoot, and then be able to say confidently, yeah, that's the one for me. Because there's not a lot of us who can drop 6,000 on a lens and not feel pretty confident that we're going to get what we're after.
But after using it, you would feel pretty confident.
Oh,
it is an amazing lens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm excited by it. The 5150, I feel, is going to not necessarily answer a problem that currently existed, but is going to kind of change how people shoot.
Yeah.
Especially in that kind of mid-tele range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that is kind of where we're at in terms of the Sony ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, when we started out, so I've been at Sony for 15 years. So, that's going to be like the unspoken context behind a lot of the stuff I say. But, you know, when we started out, we had, you know, like no lenses. We were so kind of strapped to just cover our bases that we were.
Yeah. You got to tick all the, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's first before you can start going, hey, where do we really want to push this?
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, like when we started out, we were like selling adapters so people could put their old glass onto the camera just so they'd have all their bases covered. Exactly. But now, like, we're long past that point, right? We're on to version 2 of all our kind of core zooms for GM. So all our must-haves are there. And it's a great place to be now because we're at the stage where it's more about like, well, what do you want to do? Like, let's get weird with it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next year of just, the coming years of seeing kind of what weird, interesting new areas we kind of dig into because now that you have your bread and butter lenses and your different kind of, you know, your affordable lens and then your mid-range and then your high ends, then you can go into, all right, well, like, what are the niches? And that's always the fun stuff in photography.
That is really the fun stuff.
Digging into the niches.
And I appreciate that there's obviously specialty lenses for very specific niches, you know, like the 90mm macro.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate it when lenses come along that fulfill a lot of genres.
Yeah.
I know that's intentional, but it's always just like that thing where you kind of go, oh, wow, like I can actually use this in a lot more places than I thought I could.
Yeah.
Like even the 24 to 70 GM2, the close focus on that is unbelievable. So I was using that for a lot of ring shots at weddings without even using a real macro. No extension tubes, just in camera. Just using the, you know, APS-C crop tool. And things like the 7200 G2.
Yeah.
It having a 1:2 magnification ratio.
Yeah.
Just in lens, no adapters, nothing. That's 100%. Amazing.
Yeah, and then you can extend that. If you use the teleconverters with that lens.
Yeah, you can get a 1:1.
Goes down to 1:1 at the 2
which
times.
is amazing.
Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you also see more of like the ultra wides, right? Like that's kind of an area where we've kind of stretch our legs a little bit. So I think lenses like the 14mm f1.8, right?
And the new 16 1.8G.
Yep, exactly. Like both of those are, you know, they're not lenses that everyone needs in their kit. You know, like the 14mm and to some extent the 16, they're intended as astro lenses, really.
Yeah.
It's like you want a really wide lens that's really fast and really sharp.
And also really light.
And light, yeah.
Most astrophotographers I know, they're, you know, hiking through the bush for days to find that perfect frame.
Yes.
And if you're carrying around, you know, a hefty 1 kilo 14mm, like back in the old days.
Yeah.
You know, that's a significant amount of weight to add to your bag. Whereas that little 16 or even the 14.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that is one of the big benefits of the move to mirrorless, actually, that I think has, well, I mean, it's obviously people have enjoyed it, but I think it's people that maybe didn't understand the benefit when we first started moving there. But all the old DSLR designs, you know, because the distance from the mount to the flange where you actually put the lens on was already 40-something millimeters, you couldn't make a 14mm lens. You had to do these crazy retrofocus
and even
designs.
then, it would be a 14mm 2.8. Getting a 14mm 1.8 into that kind of size package would have been a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And sorry, so when I say like you couldn't make a 14mm, obviously you could make a 14mm lens, but you couldn't make one
light and fast.
A natural one, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
You had to like build these retro focus groups into the back so that it would like it was basically a 14mm lens, which then had this weird thing that would make all the light like go down to the sensor the right way instead of the way a 14mm wants to do it, which is have it all kind of spread back out immediately.
Yep.
People who have no video cannot see the crazy, like it looks.
He's doing contortion things with his hands.
Now these days you can make lenses that are a lot closer. They still have some retrofocus elements in them, but they are a lot closer to like a natural 14mm, which means they should be small. Like a 14mm lens, like you map it out on paper and it's like, oh, well, it should be like this tiny little lens. But to make them actually good, we have to add a lot of extra stuff in to get bigger.
Yeah. And still remaining rectilinear as well.
That's huge. Exactly. That's right. Yeah. So all that optical correction makes them bigger, but way smaller than they ever could have been on a DSLR. So
yeah. And I think whenever I talk to people about gear and building out their kit and talking about what genre they shoot and where they should sit, I always use this little triangle, which is kind of like the versatile, light and fast triangle. And every lens can kind of sit somewhere in that triangle.
Yes.
Some lenses can do all three, which is amazing. But I always love talking about if you can try and get one lens that fits at least 2 out of the 3 across your kit, from 14 all the way to 600. If you build a kit like you could have a 16mm 1.8, then you have a 24 to 70 GM2 and a 200 to 600. Now you've got almost that whole range.
Yeah.
And you've got light and fast, you've got versatile and fast, and then you've got extreme versatility, but it's a bit slower. But across the 3, you've got a kit that covers huge range.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge we have now with our lenses is like,
what do you put in your bag?
Yes, exactly. Like you need like a lens sommelier to bloody take you through the lineup.
Is that that's a new market? That's a new job?
I think we could do this. Yeah, like having someone who can take you through the range. I mean, it's not trivial. There's a lot of options.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
And finding the right thing for you can be a challenge.
Well, I think that's part of the job of Scene as well.
100%.
All the advocates and ambassadors that are running events, being able to really get some one-on-one, face-to-face time with, the whole of the Sony community. Yep. People can ask you questions. Someone like Jay, you're doing Astro, and they're going, why are you using the 14? I'm thinking about getting the 16, and then you can have that conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there are a lot of details about those lenses which can be very relevant down the road, but which you wouldn't know unless you talk to someone who knows.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from experience as well. I know that when I talk about the Sony ecosystem, especially for people who shoot hybrid like me, photo and video, you only want to buy one set of filters. You don't want to buy a million different sizes.
Huge.
So the fact that the 16 f1.8, the 20 f1.8, the 24 GM, the 35 GM, the 51.4 GM, and the 85 1.8, they all use a 67mm filter. That means you could build out a full Pelican full of lenses that cover you from 16 to 85. Yeah. And you got one filter system.
Yeah, which is great.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And obviously like a very deliberate move on the part of the designers to have that consistency. Yeah, actually I got a story time for you. Like it's kind of a, please. I mean it's I don't know if this will make it in, but I had a store reach out to me recently with this lady who had she had this problem with the blur in her photos. And so, like, she was shooting wildlife, and she was shooting on the 70 to 300. I want to say, like
the 70-300G.
The G, that's right. Yeah. And she was just saying, like, hey, like I'm noticing in the background blur of my wildlife shots that the grass is looking kind of over sharpened or something. Like there's something going on. And they'd sort of bounced this back and forth a few times before I got involved. And I had a look, and in the end, it was just that particular lens at that particular distance and with that aperture just has like a little bit of edginess to the bokeh. Like it's got like a little bit of what we call like Nissen bokeh, which is like 2 lines. Nissen is just Japanese for 2 lines. And so if you have like a single line, because the bokeh has like a little bit of an edge on it, a little bit of a bright edge. Yeah, okay. When you make that into a line, like you have an object that's getting blurred out in a line, what you wind up with is like 2 lines now, where that single line is blurred into 2. And so because the grass was at just the right distance, that sometimes those 2 lines would kind of like double up and sort of amplify each
Yeah,
other,
okay.
and so it just made the background look kind of like a bit textured and funny
Yeah,
at
okay.
this particular distance.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What can I do?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, you could shoot at different distances or try and change your aperture, but like, actually, this is the kind of thing where this is one of the reasons why you pick different lenses. Like this,
And
avoiding."
Even on my 200, 600, when you hit just past that 300 millimeter mark and then it changes up to f6.3,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of moment where I make a very conscious decision of, do I just shoot just below it to get that extra stop back,
Mm-hmm.
or do I push on it and then just go all the way to like 400 or 500 at that point? Because obviously, like, it depends on your distance to the subject, depends what the light's doing, depends on what focal length you're doing and what aperture you're shooting at. Or it's like you mentioned, those two elements focusing in tandem together. It's every shooting experience is all these factors.
Variables. Yeah.
I mean, even environmental factors, like haze and things like that.
I get this all the time where people get their first super telephoto lens. They go out on a like 40-degree day and they try and shoot birds across like a big body of water or something, and they're like, everything's blurry. This looks terrible.
Yeah.
This lens is broken. And you're like, well, this is your first time shooting through heat haze. And, obviously, like, this doesn't happen to everyone. Lots of people understand this perfectly and have legitimate issues. But sometimes you do get, people who've just kind of experienced one of these realities of shooting on different kinds of lenses for the first time.
Especially when you make that jump from maybe, say, like a wide lens straight to a tele.
Yes.
Because wide lenses, even at wide apertures, they just generally look quite sharp.
Yeah.
Because everything's so far away.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And normally without a telephoto, you don't ever have to shoot through a lot of air, right? In here, we've got, a meter of air maximum. So, what the air's doing kind of doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But then when you've got like 500 meters of air between you and your subject, that's a optical medium now, and you got to think about it.
Yeah.
And you see it at the wide end as well. People, get their first ultra wide and they're like, why does the stuff look distorted in my image? And it's like, well, because it's so ultra wide and you got it on the edge, so it looks bad. That's.
I did notice on the 5150 that had very little distortion. Just, especially when you're racking zoom very quickly, like jumping from 50 up to 100 or 50 to 150 very quickly, even just through the EVF, I noticed there's like barely any distortion. Yeah,
it's really well corrected. I think the other thing is, we do the sort of in-camera correction now. So essentially, if you're shooting JPEG or you're shooting video, you should really never see any distortion in the camera. If you look in RAWs, one of the trends that we see in lens design these days is to lean a little bit more on
software.
Geometric. Yeah, so we allow a little bit of geometric distortion, which can be very easily corrected in software. And that means we get like better results in terms of chromatic aberration and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Especially like with the way that software is trending and being able to correct certain things better than others, I would happily have a lighter lens in my bag and just lean a little more heavily on, say, like removing vignetting or distortion or things like that. I'm fine with the software doing that because it's easily fixable.
Yeah.
Whereas, certain characteristics that are harder to fix, like chromatic aberration and things like that.
Yes.
I would rather have the fix that and and make the lens lighter.
Right. Yeah. Longitudinal chromatic aberration is like you can't fix it. If it's in the image and it's a problem, then like that image has a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So like things like that, I would rather the engineers, fix these problems that are harder to fix in software. And if it means the lens is lighter, like to me, I use my camera probably every day, if not every second day.
Yeah.
So having something smaller and lighter is far more important to me than, absolute peak, clinically perfect design.
Right. And in the end, like, I mean, I think that's the thing as well, is like, ultimately the poles are not like perfect design and lightweight, because perfect design is not a thing.
No, I know.
We're not getting there.
I see people ask for, what would be your perfect lens? And people say, I want a 24 to 200 f1.4. And I say, one, it's probably very hard to build. And if it was, it'd be the size of a Suzuki Swift.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for coming in and kind of breaking down some of those products. Like we talked about the FX2 and the 5150. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing some insights just about the product, but then also a little bit about the history of, the direction of Sony and, where all the exciting stuff is going.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me in. I'm looking forward to doing it again week after next.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you then.
Thanks for tuning in to the Full Frame Podcast presented by Sony. See you next week.